What's up, y'all? This is John and Mike back for another episode of the Nothing Finer podcast. Once again, we are live on Millions. Tonight, we're talking about clean, old fashioned hate, Michigan, Ohio State, or as some people from the frozen hell that is the Midwest call it, the game. And then the Iron Bowl, in which Auburn surprised us again.
Mm.
Um, But before we get into all that, how was I guess, your week, and what are you drinking?
Week was fun. We went to like we talked about before, recorded right after the Tennessee game, last week. Went down to Disney for a few days, went to Epcot, drank around the world, went to Magic Kingdom, and that was a clusterfuck. It was so busy on. We went on Thanksgiving,
Oh, good lord.
but it was cool though. We were able to get on all the stuff we wanted to get on, see all the things we wanted to see. So it was cool. Now I'm fighting a cold because you know you have tens of thousands of people there that don't wash their hands or on vacation from all over the world. So I got some kind of virus or something because I am very nasally congested. All that. I'm drinking water. I'm gonna try not to drink until the playoff. That's my goal, or at least Christmas. So give myself about a month off. So just water for me. How about you?
Yeah, man. So we went to yesterday when the 3:30 game started. I was like, man, Auburn don't have a damn chance. All right, Kelsey, let's go to this Christmas market on Tybee you want to go to. So go to the Christmas market, meet up with some friends. There was a bar there that had $2 Jello shots.
Okay.
Um, so the board choices started very early. Um, and then our friends were like, hey, let's go have dinner and drinks at the quarter. If you ever spent
How
time around Tybee.
I was like, how is that? When we lived on Tybee, when we were renting there, we were literally right across the street from it. That A-frame house that you see from
Yeah,
the parking lot, like we stayed there.
the
Um, how
quarter
uh how was that?
is the quarter's great.
Okay.
If you like dive bars, it's they don't necessarily follow um, laws at the quarter.
That was kind of the vibe that I got. That's why I'm like, I don't really want to take my kids there. Like not
No,
because
definitely do
sort
not
of.
take the children there. People still smoke inside. There's ashtrays on all the tables. Don't take your kids
Oh,
there.
throwing
But
it back.
they also stay open until 3 a.m.
Hmm.
But the best part about it is the kitchen stays open until 3 a.m. And if you're talking
Oh
about
yeah.
a dive bar, the food's actually pretty good.
Ooh, okay, noted.
Yeah. So I mean they advertise as having the best wings in Savannah.
Hmm.
Um, I have not personally had them, but I've been told by multiple people that it is a fact.
Interesting.
My go-to is the grilled chicken sandwich because it's a good grilled chicken sandwich. Um,
Oh, hell yeah.
but no, we stayed there, and we also before we went to this Christmas market, we were sitting in the driveway, and I was like, "Hey, Kelsey, you don't have your lucky hat. Should you go in and get it?" No, we'll be back before the game starts. It'll be fine. We were not back before the game started. Um, we left the quarter at halftime. So,
Hmm.
I mean, if we're being honest, that's why Georgia Tech didn't score in the second half because we got back here. Kelsey got her lucky hat. Um, we had to do our part. That is what it is.
So to test that out though, so does she wear it the first drive or two every game, or does she have it off?
Um,
Defensive
so
drive.
for away games, she normally does not have it on, and then after the first part of the game, she's like, "Oh, I guess I'll put it on." Normally,
Okay,
it's
so
sitting on the table next to her. So that,
hmm,
yeah, yeah. Ugh. Is
interesting. Okay, so
is
keep that on
everything
you.
Kelsey's fault? Is
It
everything
is.
Kelsey's fault? That's what
Ugh.
we're asking.
I'm sure she would fight us if well, we did say it out loud. We're on record.
Oh no, I told her yesterday when Georgia Tech scored after the Dejan fumble. It's like,
Hmm.
damn, it's because you don't have your hat.
It can't argue it.
I have a very happy marriage, but everybody gets the smoke.
especially when you're fucking with the dogs, man.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So we'll get
You
right
should know
into
better.
that
Come
game
on,
here.
man.
Oh, also, I am just drinking a caffeine-free Diet Coke because I'm also feeling kind of under the weather still, and
Mhm.
I'm also after going out last night, probably not drinking for a while, and then I can't drink after my shoulder surgery because I'll be on medication. So it'll
Ooh, yeah, that's
probably
right.
be national championship time frame before I drink again.
That's
Um,
good planning.
yeah.
Speaking of which, I finally got my hoodie for Millions.
Yes, and it looks. I mean, right.
It's on Lou Holtz right now, but yeah, it's there.
I was about to say the Zoom background is taking over right now.
But
When you
I would
stand
recommend
up,
if you plan on getting it, I would get it a size up than what you normally do because yeah, I can see this shrinking a
okay,
little bit.
okay, yeah. I'm actually kind of in between sizes right now with having lost so much weight, so probably just get
I
it.
found I found that way.
I don't think you found all of it. You would not look like you do right now if you found all the weight I lost. Anyways, um, getting into this Georgia Tech game, Georgia did not cover the 24 and a half because they won this game 31-23. Um, the Dogs, it wasn't really talked about much, but I'm pretty sure it was a voluntary sitting of Ladd, Brock, Tate Ratledge, and Rah because they were all dressed. I think it was one of those things of
Well, Lad didn't have pads on.
okay, Ladd didn't have pads on.
Yeah.
Okay, um, but everybody else had pads on that I
Mhm.
saw on camera. So I think it was one of those like, I mean, if it's down bad, we'll figure it out. But you know,
Mhm.
turns out instead of waiting to the third quarter to rest the stars, they just did it before the game started.
That might be the most disrespectful thing Kirby's done to a rival. Was like, you know what? We don't even need half of our starters on offense. We got it.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I don't love
Yeah.
the fact that Georgia Tech was able to score 23, but we'll get into them here in a minute.
Yeah.
The offense still looked pretty good without those guys, and if not for an ineligible receiver downfield that called back a touchdown, Georgia would have been right around their scoring average. I will say Cedric Van Pran was right at those 3 yards that he's
Yeah.
allowed to be, so arguable that he was ineligible downfield, but that
Yeah. Did it make that big of a difference? Probably not. But
yeah.
I mean, going across all of college football yesterday and just kind of the overall theme of the season, the officiating has been uh, not good.
I we'll get into it here in a minute a lot more. I thought the officiating in Michigan Ohio State was actually fair throughout the game.
I agree, 100%.
Once they set the precedent of it's questionable, instead of taking 20 minutes to look at it, it's going to stand. That
Mm.
ran the entire game.
Well, and the game still ran really long. At least it felt like it did. Maybe because
Yeah.
I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. I don't know.
No, no, I agree because the 3:30 games had already started when that game finished, so it
Yeah,
did run a little long. But we'll get into that a lot more here in a minute.
yeah.
Carson technically had an interception, even though I don't think that should go into his stat category because when it double doinks off of two people and somebody finds it in the air,
Hmm.
that's not his fault.
And it seems like most of his interceptions have been that way.
Tips, yeah. He has made 2 or 3 bad decisions all year,
Mm.
but he's got like 10 picks because of tips.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
curious as to how many drops. I don't know if you would necessarily classify that as a drop, that one, but how many drops receivers have this year compared to like last year?
I would love to know where to look up the drop
Yeah.
stat.
Because the NFL has it readily available. At least, I see it pretty
Yeah,
regularly like, online, but yeah, college football, not as much.
yeah. Um, so we kind of alluded to this a minute ago, but Georgia didn't allow a touchdown on the first drive.
Yeah.
Um,
Hell yeah.
I more or less think that it was the first drive. It was just a remix of allowing a touchdown on the first drive.
Hmm.
3 and out, punt, first play fumble, then they get a touchdown. It's just a remix. Changed it up a little,
Hmm.
they don't want to be predictable. You
Yeah.
gotta keep them guessing how they're going to get that first drive touchdown.
Hmm.
Um, I'll let you read this next part because I don't. If I'm being honest, I don't remember this.
You know, that's wild. You don't, okay. Maybe after I say it. So kind of I don't want to call it a theme or a trend, but even, I guess it kind of is. Dejan and Mackay Muse have a propensity to fumble, or muff punts. Like Mackay
Hot potato.
has a few times, yeah. So I was saying we need Tim McGraw to tape the ball to Dejan and Mackay's hands like he did in Friday Night Lights. Yeah, at the very beginning. You remember that?
The movie, right?
Yeah, the movie. Yeah, I didn't watch the show. The movie.
Uh, I really like the show, but I haven't seen the movie in probably 15 years.
Oh, that's one of the parts I remember most. Is it was just so ridiculous. But then the
I'll
whole,
have I'll have 3 weeks of sitting on the couch, not able to
yeah.
do much of anything, so I'll catch up.
Yeah, because his Tim McGraw's son fumbled the ball, and he was drinking after the game. He's like, oh, well, we're gonna fix that or whatever. He got duct tape and taped the ball around his hands when his uh when his son was trying to do naughty things with Coed. It
Yeah,
was very
that
cool.
send me movie and show recommendations for my 3 weeks of not being able to do anything after shoulder surgery here in a few minutes, and that's for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, but Friday Night Lights definitely needs to be one of them to rewatch. Anyway,
Um, so Tech's offense played a little bit better than expected against Georgia's defense with Buster Faulkner as their OC. I think that actually had a lot to do with it. It's something I overlooked last week. So for those of you that don't know and didn't have it pounded into your ears during the game, Buster Faulkner was an analyst on the staff last season under Todd Monken and practiced and designed plays to beat Georgia's defense as a job.
yeah.
Um, so makes sense that he would be good at it
Mhm.
at his next job. Um, and then, as far as Tech's defense goes, we saw what they were able to do last season. I, this is Tech's Super Bowl, so every week they have a plan and they spend time focusing on beating Georgia. And this was a competitive game. I said it last week. It's
Yeah.
getting closer to being a rivalry again.
Mhm.
Um, I think it is, especially with, you know, they're at the end of the game, coaches separating players, even though it looked like they were doing handshakes and not fighting. I think the coaches were ready for it.
Hell yeah. I missed that. I went to sleep at that point as soon as after I think Georgia was like kneeling it out. But yeah, I have to go back and check that out.
I rewatched it this afternoon because um, the quarter I ordered singles and I think he was pouring triples.
Oh,
So
value.
um,
So so
yeah,
when you rewatched it, because I only watched it the one way through, because I thought it was kind of the game plan was kind of vanilla again, not having a lot of your starters on offense, even though they didn't necessarily matter. But I mean, did you think that Georgia just ran a lot of shell or a lot of base stuff and didn't try to get too exotic, not to show Bama anything next week?
um, this is going to sound real disrespectful to Tech. I think that based on how Tech's run their offense, that Georgia was almost using this game as a trial and error for that game next week.
Hmm.
Because Haynes King, Jalen Milrow, but faster and a little skinnier.
I would say like a Haynes King is like a great value Jalen Milrow, and Jalen Milrow is a great value Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and the running backs are very similar. They're receiving threats out of the backfield, not necessarily power runners. Um, I will say, I think Alabama has a slight edge in the tight end category, and they're probably about even in wide receivers talent. And that's disrespectful to Alabama because
Mhm.
Georgia Tech's best receivers were all starters at other programs that decided to leave,
Well, one of them was from
including,
Alabama, right?
I was about to say,
Yeah.
Christian Leary
Yeah.
from Alabama. I
Mhm.
want to say he was one of the guys that was a big factor in them coming back against Auburn last season or in 2021.
Yeah.
Um, and then, played really well today, or yesterday. Um, but no, I mean, I talked about it last week. Georgia Tech has a lot of transfer players. It's how they've gotten so much better in the past season. I think their offensive line was good. I no shade at their players or coaching staff. Actually,
Mhm.
I truly think that they are getting better as a program, but Georgia's still so much more talented through and through that they were able to treat it as a trial and error and okay, this worked, okay, this didn't
Mhm.
for that game next week because how similar their offensive plans are.
And Brent Key had them playing really well, like or as well as you can expect them to play, mistake free as well. I mean, Georgia had a
Brent
bunch more
Key
penalties.
is college football's Dan Campbell,
Ooh, yeah. I mean,
and that is a
uh,
compliment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He's coaching at his alma mater. I know they said that, a ton of times during the broadcast, but even when he took over on an interim basis last year when they fired G off, I mean, he had them playing a
They
lot
beat
better.
what? They beat a top 10 UNC the week Jeff Collins got fired.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And then they had what, two top 25 wins this year. They had that miracle against Miami, and
they beat
and then
UNC
yeah, again,
again.
yeah.
Um,
But he has them playing well. Penalty wise, Tech only had three penalties for 15 yards. Georgia had six for 60. So there's that.
I,
Um, yeah.
a lot of the ones on Georgia, especially in the rewatch, they like were they technically penalties or were they borderline? Yes.
Hmm.
Are those 99% of the time not called? Yes.
Hmm.
Eh, like if you follow the black and white, like Cedric Van Pran, half of his foot was probably over that 3 yards downfield.
Hmm.
Did it make a difference in the play? Absolutely not. There a couple pass interference on Georgia that were like, I mean, yeah, he contacted him 10 yards ago,
Yeah.
but like, was the ball in the air? Yes. Did he make contact? Yes. Did it have literally anything to do with whether or not that pass was caught because it was 10 yards out of bounds? No.
Hmm.
So I don't want to keep harping on officiating, but it wasn't great.
Yeah. I mean, there was definitely worse called games out there, but yeah, I get what you're saying, for sure. But I mean, like I was saying, he had them playing well. It was a much closer game than we both thought. I think we both took Georgia to cover that, and yeah. And it was something that I was thinking about today when I was kind of driving around was that I don't know how much it was mentioned before the game, how much or who was going to miss it, whether Ladd and Brock and Rah and Tate were going to miss the game or whatever. But if again, knowing if I would have known, I probably would have thought a little bit harder about taking them to cover that. But again, the offense wasn't the problem; it was more the defense. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it is hard to I mean, so Georgia Tech's offensive game plan, they really ran a dressed up triple option.
Yeah.
Uh, there was a running back in the backfield that could have taken the handoff. The quarterback could have taken it, or he had the pass option. Like it was 100% a triple option offense that was dressed up. And to their credit, they did it extremely well.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
it is a gimmicky offense. I mean, it fits how they play in their talent level against more talented teams. But when they almost entirely changed their offensive identity for one game just because they wanted to try to beat Georgia, like it's not necessarily something you can plan for defensively.
No, I mean, if yeah, you got to throw the kitchen sink at them because again, you're not going to out physical Georgia. You're not going to out talent them. So yeah, I mean, you got to do something different. That's why I think one of the reasons why they ran the triple option for all those years under Paul Johnson. Part of that reason they couldn't beat Mark Richt, going head to head in all these battles, they had to do something different that they would have to take time out to prepare for and all that. So I get it, but
Yeah. No,
yeah,
and
I'm yeah.
once again, no, absolutely no shade to Tech. Like I
No.
actually gained a lot of respect for them, and I even had. I mean, I respected the team last week because they are doing significantly better this year. I mean, they are going to a bowl game for the first time since 2018. Like
Hmm.
they are drastically improving as a program. A lot of these guys that they brought in through the transfer portal have eligibility to come back next year, build on what they've done this year. But it was a gimmicky offense.
And I want to say I think they had 4 or 5 conference wins too.
I believe so.
Because I know I mean, they lost to Bowling Green. They lost to, did they lose to Ole Miss? Did they play Ole Miss
Yeah,
this
they
year or was it
lost to Ole
last year?
Miss.
Yeah. So the Bowling Green one was tough. But again, I mean, winning 4 or 5 ACC games is impressive considering where they had been under Jeff Collins.
No, I agree. No, you know we're I'm not going to say it again, but I am gaining respect for this Georgia Tech program. I think very interested to see who their bowl game is against because
Yeah.
there's so many mid teams out there that I
Yeah.
think Georgia Tech definitely has the ability to beat one of these teams. Um, so something that I wanted to put in here and didn't. This game reminds me a lot of that Missouri game from last season. Georgia significantly outgained them in yards, but it was turnovers, penalties, touchdowns, and big plays called back. And it was a closer game on the scoreboard than it was in reality. Um, so that's, just something that kind of caught my eye there.
Yeah, I mean, like yardage wise, I had it there. Georgia outgained Tech 437 to 363. So I mean, it wasn't like the big differential that we're necessarily used to, but Tech did have 205 yards on the ground.
Yeah,
That's a little bit concerning, just a little bit.
it is. But when you have two or three different running options in the backfield, and Tech finally has good receivers and a quarterback that can actually throw the ball. Like you have to cover all your bases because if they would have sold out to stop the run, Blaylock, Seether, Christian Leary, any of those guys could catch a pass and take it to the house because they're all very talented.
Mhm. Yeah, but
Um,
like you were saying, they're going to be a problem going forward. They're only going to get better.
oh yeah, 100%. Especially because their offensive and defensive coordinators are guys that are getting their start in the Power Five. I mean, Buster Faulkner was an offensive coordinator for a lower level Group of Five team,
Hmm.
and is obviously he cut his teeth at Georgia, got that job at Georgia Tech, and is doing extremely well at it. So like
Hmm.
they are going to continue to do well. I will say it was a sad, sad day, end of a streak. Um,
Hmm.
it was an end of a streak that we were all very proud of. Obviously, I'm not talking about regular season wins that went to 39, just wins in a row that went to 29, seasons that they've won 12 regular season games, gone undefeated through the regular season is 3. We're talking about Carson's streak of 250 passing yards to start a career. He got it to 11 games, so broke the old record by 5 games, I believe. It was Kellen Mond at 6.
Hmm.
So extremely impressive. He did go 13 of 20 for 175 yards, touchdown, and then that interception does go on his stat sheet, even though it wasn't his fault in any way, shape, or
Yeah,
form.
and
Uh,
I still thought he played decently well. I mean, at least for what they asked him to do. I mean, he only like you said, he only threw 20 passes or attempted 20 passes, and still converted big third downs when he needed to. So I mean, I have nothing bad to say about it, really.
yeah, no, I do think that he was having a little bit of accuracy issues,
Yeah,
um, but when he was on for drives, a dude could have thrown a ball in. He could have thrown a ball through a small square hole.
that touchdown pass he had to tie it up in the first to, I think, was that to Lovett?
That was to love it, and then that
Yeah, that
one
was
on the
nice.
sideline to Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh. Yeah.
yeah. He could have dropped a football and a beer can when he was on last night. And that's what we want to
Yeah.
see, especially going into next week. And another guy that's peaking at the right time, Kendall Milton. We said it in like week 2. A healthy Kendall Milton is a fucking problem.
Yep.
He had a career high 18 carries, a career high 156 yards, and tied his career high of 2 touchdowns in a game.
Hmm. He
And the
was he
wild
was
thing
so
is,
good.
at the end of the third quarter, he had 170 rushing yards. It was in the fourth quarter, some negative plays brought him back down to 156.
Mm.
He's a fucking problem. And I don't know how many teams in the country are going to be able to stop him because last night and even against Tennessee and
See,
Ole
yeah.
Miss, he was hit low and stepped through those tackles.
Yes.
Like, man, one of those big runs he had. If he, I think he had 2 runs last night that were called back for penalties that were like 30-yard runs.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
but in at least one of those long runs, some guy had both of his legs wrapped up going through the hole, and he stepped through it and kept going. So
Hmm.
this is the Kendall Milton that we've been waiting for.
Yeah. He he really stepped up. He was one of the guys that stepped up the most. And again, all those guys that we talked about that didn't play stepped up the most, especially with Dejan, having the fumble early on in the game. But yeah, Kendall stepped up big time. I'm looking forward to seeing how he plays against Bama next week, because we're gonna definitely gonna need him to be this Kendall Milton and not Kendall Milton of the past.
Not early season Kendall. No, I
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
Um, so we talked about the guys being out. Dominic Lovett, he's he is this is kind of a throwback. He is this season's Dominic Blaylock from 2019.
yeah.
Like
Hmm.
he's always running clean routes. He's 99% of the time open, and when nobody else is, you can throw the ball his direction and have a very good idea that he's going to catch it. Dylan Bell, another guy peaking at the right time. I mean, his usage over the last few weeks has been phenomenal. Stepped up
Hmm.
for injured guys, and then Arian Smith.
He's here. He's there. He's on the team.
I I figured it out. I figured out Arian Smith. He doesn't do well when it's warm. It needs to be
Oh,
cold.
where's he from originally? You know? You remember?
I don't. And I don't think it matters because
Mm.
play late season Arian
Elite.
is elite. Late season Arian is big Tyreek Hill vibes.
Hmm. He just needs to be able to catch the ball better. That's one thing that I mean, he obviously had to struggle with the rest of the season, or earlier in the season, I should say. But like that kind of brings me to one of the things that I put in here. Do you think that they try to get him involved more, kind of going in these last, you know, minimum 2 games, hopefully 3, of like getting the ball in his hand? Because I mean, he's obviously dynamic. He's like he's gonna be the fastest guy on the field, whatever field he's on. But doing like jet sweeps or wildcat type stuff, like they need to make more of an effort to get him the ball without him having to worry about like actually catching it, at least until he gets his confidence back.
So I think next week, we'll preview for later in the week episode. I think he is a lot more involved in the backfield, and I think Dylan Bell is fairly involved in the backfield. And I say that because both of these guys are very fast and can make you miss. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing that we saw, especially on Saturday with Jarquez Hunter, um, Bama's front seven is lacking speed this year.
Yeah.
So I think they're both fairly big parts of the game plan. Maybe not, I'm not going to say they both get 10 carries, but, some sort of screen or jet sweep or, double reverse kind of situation going on
Mm-hmm.
against Alabama with their slower than normal front seven for them. I think both Arian and Dylan Bell can get involved pretty good with that.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they both have big games on Saturday.
Hey, and it is in the bins where Arian Smith buried an Ohio State
Yeah.
defensive back for a 72-yard touchdown.
I think I could be wrong, but he might have had the most receiving yards for a college player in the Benz. I could be totally wrong on that. I might just be making it up. I don't know, but it feels
I
right.
definitely think you are because 2019 LSU played 2 games
Oh,
in the bins.
yeah. Okay, never mind. Non Joe Burrow teams.
On non Joe Burrow teams, you're probably right. You're
Yeah,
probably right.
yeah.
So for Caleb's corner this week, obviously Georgia just broke the SEC record for longest win streak. Georgia has done this with tougher schedules as well, as the two Alabama teams have previously held the record, beat 7 and 6 top 25 teams respectively during their streak, while Georgia, since that 2021 SEC championship game, has beaten 11 top 25 teams to keep that streak going. Um,
Damn.
yeah. Oh,
It's like an entire season almost.
almost. And
Yeah.
this season it's been two teams this season were top 10.
Mhm.
So, you
Well,
know,
was Missouri in the top 10 when Georgia played them?
I mean, I don't know, but
They're
I
borderline.
think
Yeah.
ranking at the end of the season is,
Oh,
you know, to me at least, is more important
yeah, that's true. Yeah, because
because
like Kentucky, Kentucky
I
was not.
was about to
Kentucky
say
was not a top 10
Kentucky
team.
was technically ranked when Georgia ran them out of Sanford.
Hmm.
We're gonna go ahead and get into players of the week. So, Mike, with the offense.
All right, so we alluded to it earlier. Kendall Milton, career game, career high, 18 carries, career high, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like we said, peaking at the right time. I think that's back-to-back weeks for him winning our player of the week, or offense player of the week. So, shout out Kendall. Keep it going.
Yeah, no, I am excited to see what he can do down the stretch here, especially if he's continues his good health and the offensive line continues to do what they've been doing all season. For defensive player of the game, I've got Smile Mondon making a ton of plays all night. He was making up for other guys' mistakes. He is that alpha inside linebacker with Pop being out. 8 total tackles, including 5 solo, and he spent a good bit of time in coverage last night, which is not necessarily one of his fortes.
Mhm.
So stepped up big time, led the team in tackles. He's definitely living up to his recruiting ranking, and I'm real glad that he's a sophomore.
Yeah, that was one of the things I noticed a lot was they kind of isolated linebackers and picked on them in coverage a little bit. And I mean, they played well. I mean, it wasn't like they got beat a ton. Him and CJ Allen come to mind the most, but yeah, the Smile played beautifully for them.
And we are doing a freshman of the week again. So for this week,
Marshall Walker went 16 yards. He drove right over Orange Church, just driving and running with those big thighs. My God, a freshman.
player of the week, I've got Kristen Miller. He was living in the backfield when he was on the field last night. I believe he's the guy that forced that fumble from Haynes King. Tech ended up recovering it, but he's the guy that just rocked Haynes King's world and got that ball out. He ended up 2 solo tackles, both of them in the backfield. One was a sack, one was a tackle for loss. Freshman,
Yeah.
real happy that he is another one of those guys that's taking over, making big plays at the right time. Um, are we going to get a Bear Alexander type postseason from Kristen Miller? People are asking.
Hopefully not a off season like Bear Alexander, but
No, I don't
he
think he's
does.
gonna. I don't think he's gonna fall for the LA hype.
No, shoot. All right, so Hungriest Dog. And I think we gave it to Dill Bell last week too, but he's my hungriest dog, 3 catches, 37 yards. He did have a touchdown call back on that uh, the penalty on uh, Van Bram, but 3 catches for 37 yards, a rush for 29 yards, and he had a kick return for almost 40 yards. So I mean, he was all over the place, and I mean, he's again really stepped up in absence of some of the bigger name guys. So he's really come through for this team when needed. And again, hopefully they keep him involved once everybody's back. Whether it's Saturday or the playoff.
And late edition here. I do want to do a player B for Hungriest Dog, but it's going to be the entire offensive line.
Yeah.
Just based on what the running game was doing. And it was a vastly shifted around offensive line. I mean, Ernest Green was still playing left tackle. Van Pran was still playing center. But Micah Morris, when he's been called into action, has done phenomenally. Dylan Fairchild, I've talked about him all season as I think he is one of, if not the best guard on the team. And it's two guys, both sophomores, taking over for a 3-year starter in Tate Ratledge. And, I think the entire offensive line had a hell of a day, but especially those two guys that have been kind of playing cleanup with Tate being out. Just super impressed by what they've done, especially last week against Tennessee, coming in with a top 10 rushing defense, and then this week against Georgia Tech, all sorts of cobbled together. Highly, highly impressed with what they've done over the last few weeks.
Yeah, we know they're not going to win the Joe Moore Award, but there are Joe Moore Award winners in our book.
So, I've already kind of hinted at it. I'm gonna have a go off queen moment on the Joe Moore Award finalists soon. Do I do it Wednesday and we kind of have a longer episode because we're probably going to talk about all the Power 5 championships, or do I do it on Sunday after all the games are over?
I would say,
Or I could even do it next Wednesday because we're talking about Army Navy and some of the bowl matchups.
Yeah, I would do that. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Because we're going to talk to our Alabama insider on Wednesday too. So
Yeah. All right. So next Wednesday is when the rant about the Joe Moore Award for this season is going to come into effect. We're about to do Calling the Dogs, but I just want to remind you guys, the phone number is 678-465-8020 if you would like to be on Calling the Dogs. And for this week, call in. I truly do not care if it's a 15-minute Calling the Dogs segment on Wednesday because it is championship week. It is Alabama. And you go off on any of the Power 5 championship games. I mean, does Oklahoma deserve to get roasted after beating Texas and then finding a way to not play in the Big 12 championship?
people are saying,
Does Louisville deserve to get roasted for losing to a not good Kentucky team and essentially making the next week's game irrelevant?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
does Iowa deserve all of the smoke? Yes.
they deserve all the praise because they're going to pull off an upset.
So if you want to get in on it for the Wednesday show, that is 678-465-8020. We will be recording Wednesday at 8 p.m. So if you get it in before then, it will make the show. But for this week's Calling the Dogs, here we go.
Hi, Sean, to keep it real with you. Approximately 10 minutes ago, I was nervous about this game. But as of right now, Kendall Milton just ran in for the touchdown that made the game 14-10. And this is all it takes because now I am not just hopeful, I am not just confident, I am certain that not only is Georgia going to win this game, but just like we thought, it's not going to be particularly close. Okay, good job, Tech. You ran in, you got the one touchdown like everybody does. You know, you got that cute little field goal because Key is terrified to try anything on this Georgia defense or give us any momentum, so here's your field goal, sir. And it didn't matter because they cannot stop this offense. They got one lucky fumble on the first play. Good job. You ain't getting another one. So I'm making this call right now. 14-10, barely into the second quarter. Georgia's going to win this game by an awful lot. I already know it. And if I look stupid later, whoops.
All right, so I was wrong enough that I feel like I need to call that and set the record straight on that. So yeah, I said the game wasn't going to be particularly close. And you know what? At a lot of times it didn't feel like it was. And they went up by 18. But this was one of those games where, we didn't play our A-plus game. We probably didn't even play our C-plus game. Ball bounced Georgia Tech's way on a lot of things. A lot of things. Some luck coming their way. Some home cooking coming their way from the ACC officials running the game. And you know what? At the end of the day, it didn't matter. We won the game. Everything that could have gone Georgia Tech's way in that game did. Everything that could have given them an opportunity to get an upset happened. And they still couldn't do it. We still did just enough to hold them to just enough points to get the win. And really, that's all you need to do. It's rivalry week. You're at their place. I get it. It's historic Mark Richt Field where we haven't lost since 1999. But that crowd was kind of buzzing. At least from what I could tell on television. It seemed like the atmosphere was pretty much buzzing in favor of the Nerds. So I'm not really that upset. The final score was only an 8-point game. Based on all of that. Because now Kirby's going to whip those boys into shape in practice. He certainly wouldn't have been happy with the performance. I don't want him to be happy with that performance. But I'm happy knowing that those boys are going to get whipped into shape. Because what happens after these close games, where Georgia does not play our best, historically and this season, is we come out the next week rolling and on all cylinders. So I'm ready to see that next weekend. Couldn't have been timed any better.
All right, Caleb with 2 calls, and it was definitely a tale of two. It was a tale of 2 voicemails, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
If you didn't hear it in whatever form you're listening to this, it will be in the Spotify version. So go check that out. Spotify, Apple, all the other places. I don't really know how many places we're in, but I know
at least those.
Spotify and Apple.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm just going to reiterate. We want all the voicemails this week, 678-465-8020 for your opportunity to call the Dogs. So now we're getting into Ohio State at Michigan. And, as our resident Big Ten homer, I will just give you the floor and make some comments.
All right. So before we even get into the game, got to clear the air a little bit. I talked to my mom when I was on vacation. She wasn't too happy with you and Wes about all the shit you talked about Michigan. She was very upset. She was very mad.
So, do you know what I said? Because I don't. Was it about the state or was it about?
No. It was about the team. It was about the helmets and I can't hear. I think that was the major thing that I remember you saying. But she said if you ever step foot in Michigan, it's fate on sight. She's gonna have her goons come after y'all. So just keep your head on a swivel.
I do intend on making a Michigan game to hang out with Jim Brandstatter. So, I'll just make sure to get some punching bag sessions in the week before.
There you go. Speaking of Jim, he got the opportunity to actually make the last radio call on that, just announcing that Michigan had won that game. So that was really cool to see. He goes to all the games at home and then a lot of them away too. So that was kind of cool to see because he had retired, after the 2021 season. So that was cool for him to see.
Yeah, that was awesome. You sent me the link and I listened to it. That was cool.
Yeah. So, all right. So first off, I want to start off by just LOLing at Ryan Day, Mr. Bourne on third base. And he gets a lot of hate because, he has a very punchable face. He, the whiner, complainer, will complain about stuff, 10, 11, 12 months later. But some of the criticism that he gets is really kind of unfair. So as a head coach, he's 56-7 overall, 39-3 in Big Ten games. So all of his Big Ten losses have come to Michigan in the last 3 years. I think he's.
How much joy does it bring you to say that out loud?
Oh, it's so sweet. It's so sweet. The fact that all these former Buckeyes, Maurice Claret, who was like huge for them winning the '02 championship, Terrell Pryor and his, free tattoos that got Jim Tressel fired. They were all calling for Ryan Day's head. Like before the game, they're like, "Oh yeah," like especially Maurice Claret was like 2 or 3 hours before the game. He's like, "Yeah, Ohio State's gonna roll into Michigan and kick their ass, then win the Big Ten title, and then beat Georgia's ass in the national championship. I'm calling it right now, and none of that's gonna happen."
Nope. No, it is not.
Yeah, beautiful.
I know it's been joked about that Ryan Day, if he loses this game, is on the hot seat. Is any of that
He,
reality?
yes, yes, absolutely, and I think part of it, they're not gonna fire him right now, and I don't want to say if he lost the fourth consecutive year they would necessarily fire him, but at the same time, the amount of shit that he's going to get that he's already gotten, I don't know if it's tenable for him to stay there. Because again, Kirk Herbstreit, he had to leave. He had to move to Cincinnati to get away from all the crazy asses in Columbus because they thought he was, not being, a good
Biased
Buckeye.
enough.
Yeah, exactly. Like they are legitimately nuts about it. And granted, Michigan is too. We talked about Michigan fans and alumni and all that. We're asking before this 3-game win streak against Ohio State whether or not they should keep Harbaugh because of it. So it's a legitimate thing, even though I think all but one of your losses as three. Okay, so of your 7 losses, 3 came to Michigan the last 3 years. 1 came to Georgia, and then who they? I'm trying to think who else they lost to. They haven't lost to Penn State. I think they lost to Clemson once and Bama once too. So
Wasn't there a Purdue loss thrown in, or was that still with Urban?
I don't I don't think it.
I'm gonna
It
look it up.
may have been, yeah. But like, regardless, like he doesn't have a great record about against AP top 5 teams. I'm not talking about top 25 against top 5 teams. He's well below 500.
It
So
was 2018 the last time Purdue beat Ohio State. So that was Urban.
yeah, that was Urban's
For
last year because they beat Michigan in 2019. They didn't play in 2020, and then they lost the last 3 years. So yeah. Um, But so again, I don't know if he wants to put up with that. That's why I was kind of hoping he'd do Texas A&M because they are also delusional. But at least he'd get out of Columbus and do a fresh start. He might get a shot in the NFL and like really enjoy that. Like if he went to like the Chargers or somewhere like that where nobody gives a shit, that might be his sweet spot. Because he is a good coach. Like well, he's kind of gone downhill a little bit since all of Urban's guys are gone. But
he
um,
makes the right coaching hires.
yes, big
It's
time. He can put together a staff.
correct. It's
Yeah.
it's really the recruiting at key positions that he has a hard time with.
Well, not receivers and running back. Running back's not too bad either. And their pass
Quarterback.
rush has fallen off considerably. He hasn't gotten a Bosa there in a while, or
Quarterback.
Chase Young or anything like that. So like there's been some slippage there. There are still like high recruiting classes and all that, top 5 every year, but it's not hitting at the rate that it was under Urban. But yeah, he probably is on the hot seat. He's not going to get fired right now. I wouldn't be surprised if he left at his own, volition. But in this game itself, like I alluded to before, you got the full Ryan Day experience, looking like he was going to cry after several calls, and have his like just for men run down his face like it was mascara.
So the loss that we couldn't remember, Oregon in the
Oh
shoe.
yeah, that was at home too. That was in the
Yes.
shoe. Um, But yeah, complaining after long after plays were over, playing chicken shit at times where they should have went for it on 4th down, missing field goals in big spots, etc. It was the full gamut of the Ryan Day experience for Ohio State in big games. But to try to get away from him for a minute because it's just a lot of fun to talk crap about Ryan Day, and nobody's gonna hate it. I think everybody is on board except for Ohio State fans, which I would be shocked if you had any Ohio State fans actually listening. But
Fair. Fair.
um, the throw that JJ McCarthy, Michigan's quarterback, made, um, I can't remember what quarter it was, but the one that they had reviewed and thought that, oh, it may have been an interception, which I didn't. I thought it was pretty obvious that it wasn't an interception, but they looked at it, all that. But that was the best throw that man has ever made in his
Oh,
life.
the
That was
one. Are you talking
incredible.
about the one where he literally threw the football in a 1 foot gap between two Ohio State players for the touchdown? Yeah.
Because he doesn't he's normally risk averse. He doesn't usually throw 10 interceptions. He did one game this year, but like he really doesn't take chances like that very often. And I mean, big time for that to go through or for that to happen for him.
One of the best
Um,
throws I've ever seen of any quarterback ever.
yeah, I mean, it still doesn't make me think he's like a Heisman contender or anything like that. If he comes back next year, which he should, because again, he's fine, but that throw itself is beautiful. Um, so Michigan won because they played pretty mistake-free football for the most part. Kyle Honda McCord threw two costly interceptions that one in the first quarter that kind of changed or really got the momentum going in Michigan's favor early on. And then the last one coming as Ohio State was driving with a minute left. They needed a touchdown. They were down by 6 in their final possession, and he threw an interception to Rod Moore. Rod Moore, defensive back for Michigan that caught the interception, he is a Ohio native. Did not get even remotely recruited by Ohio State. Nothing. And there's a saying up there that the best players in Ohio play at Michigan. Charles Woodson, Desmond Howard. The list kind of goes on from there. But Kyle McCord, if you had to point your finger toward one player that lost the game, he was it. The drop off between C.J. Stroud and Kyle McCord is I don't
Makes
think it can be
Grand
stated.
Canyon look shallow.
Yeah, it I don't know how they got to that point. I want to say C.J. Stroud was a Ryan Day guy. I mean, I know he was offensive coordinator and all that before that, but how did it get to that point where he was the best option for that team?
Well, Kyle McCord was highly rated coming out of high school. He was a dual threat guy. He just hasn't developed in the system.
Yeah, yeah, because we both. I mean, we talked about it last year. I mean, C.J. Stroud. I mean, won me over, and he's obviously killing it in the NFL. Like, he won me over in the Peach Bowl, especially 2-time Heisman runner-up. I mean, or finalist at least. But yeah, McCord wasn't it. I don't know what his future is for Ohio State, but it's probably not good.
Yeah, I don't. If Kyle McCord is the starter next season, I think we should probably expect a few more losses because
Hmm.
they're more than likely losing Marvin Harrison Jr., um, Emeka Ibuka,
Mhm.
and potentially Julian Fleming.
You wasted those guys' careers, especially Marvin Harrison.
I don't know.
I mean, I think Malik.
I don't think you
Yeah.
can call last season wasted.
No, no. I mean, they were, a good kicker away or a more money kicker away from winning a national championship. So I mean,
Yeah.
they were, the thinnest of margins for them. But I mean, wasting his season this year.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
Wasting his pre-draft season, where
yeah. It was
Fox is
set to
still
be his.
trying to say that he's a top 3 guy for the Heisman, which is absurd in my mind.
Yeah. If any receiver deserved to be there, it should be Malik Neighbors. But that's a different discussion.
Correct.
But
That I'm sure we will have.
yeah, we'll definitely have time prior to that Heisman ceremony because I'm pretty sure right after the conference championships they announced that the finalists for because they do it like the weekend after, right? They do it like the weekend of the Army Navy game.
The ceremony?
Yeah, I think so.
Ooh, I'd have to look it up. You can keep going. I'll look it up.
Yeah. All right. So just kind of hitting on some actual like Michigan like players and stuff like that, not just shitting on Ohio State. Blake Corum, 22 carries, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns, one of which came to play after Michigan guard Zach Zinter had a gruesome leg injury. Like a lot of like coaches on Michigan staff, other offensive linemen tried to like comfort the Ohio State defensive lineman that rolled up on him like during that whole that longer stoppage.
I'm so glad I didn't see it, and I love that Fox immediately was like,
Yeah,
"This is bad. We are not showing it
yeah.
whatsoever."
Yeah, I didn't go looking for it. I don't usually go looking for that stuff, but especially
Mm.
with that, seeing how upset everybody was that wasn't it. The last time I went and looked for an injury was like that Kevin Ware one. Was it Louisville in the Final Four or
Yes.
the tournament? Yeah, that was the last one. I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah,
Um,
and you knew it was bad because when they came back from commercial break, his parents were standing next to him.
yeah. Mm.
That's
Oh,
that.
like JJ McCarthy was like comforting them on the sideline, like they're all hugging them and everything, and I mean
Yeah,
it was bad.
yeah,
But the play immediately after that, the one they did, after they came back from that injury timeout, Blake Corum had a big 22-yard run, and that was one of the worries is like Minter or Zinter is one of the best linemen they have. I mean he's a pro prospect and everything. They're like, oh shit, like they've only really been able to run the ball. That was not the case. I mean they ran it arguably better, at least when they needed to. So that was kind of surprising to see. The tight end isn't really the receivers didn't really get a ton of love besides that one amazing touchdown. But Colston Loveland had 88 yards receiving as well. He came out of the game late. He was broadcast said he was coughing up blood, and then they had an Indiana transfer tight end come in there and they just pick up where he left off, and that was cool to see. Um, but one kind of last Michigan related thing there. Um, in the post game, Roman Wilson, Michigan receiver, I think he was the one that caught that pass from JJ, that
he
touchdown.
was.
But yeah, so he basically shit on the entire Ohio State program. Kind of what everybody's been saying is that they're soft and all that, lack toughness. But like, here's his actual quote. I told the receivers the whole week, you guys, that you've got guys there who want to put on Louis Vuitton, that $1,000 outfit. They want to act hard, but when they're out there, they're not hard. Wilson said. See, they're not tough. I don't think I'm the toughest guy in the world, but I'm out there. I'm getting physical. I don't think they wanted it like I wanted it, and that goes with the whole idea that Ryan Day's program is soft. The Peach Bowl, the last 3 games against Michigan, kind of back that up. So
Yeah, and specifically, Marvin Harrison Jr. is extremely talented. He was probably the most talented player on that field for both
yeah,
sides.
I mean he had
I
5 catches for 118 yards from Kyle McCord.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but he is not tough. He is not strong, and that's not meant to be disrespectful. And it probably sounds like it, but that is a failure of the coaching staff, the strength staff,
Mm.
that he's still able to get manhandled as much as he is because he could be stronger and just as good.
He has the potential to be I mean,
He is
to
what
be
CeeDee
similar to like
Lamb
Calvin
thinks
Johnson.
CeeDee Lamb is.
Yeah. I mean, he could be a Calvin Johnson type talent. I mean, he's huge. I mean, if he, I mean, he's fast as hell. I mean, he could do that, but Calvin took a beating in Detroit, obviously because he retired early, just like all the greats in Detroit do. But um, yeah, I don't. He has the potential, but I mean, it wasn't necessarily realized there to be that Calvin Johnson type player. But he'll be drafted top 3, top 5, and probably have a really good career. But
And the best thing that he could possibly do for the rest of his career is get out of Ohio State. Even if he does the insane thing and comes back to college next year, leave Ohio State.
mm,
Go to a
it's,
program that will actually help you improve instead of just saying, hey, you're already one of the best receivers in the sport. We're going to maintain you.
well, a lot of guys that ended up leaving, like when like Jameson Williams and trying to think of the other guys that left that ended up being like first round picks that transferred out of Ohio State. Like they kind of realized that potential after they left. Brian Hartline, their wide receiver coach. I mean, obviously, hell of a recruiter, gets like all these 5-star receivers and stuff like that. But again, it, the toughness part is not part of his pitch to get them to come and get better in that sense. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Let's get into the Iron Bowl.
yeah,
So I 100% was wrong on this. I thought Alabama was going to run away with this. Um, and Auburn and Hugh Freeze almost pulled off the upset. But Jalen Milroe did what Jalen Milroe does. You had the full experience, just like we talked about Ryan Day. You're going to have some things that, like, how is it possible that he did that? And then
yeah.
you're going to have some plays where you're like,
How
damn,
is that possible that he did that?
and then you're going to have some plays where you're like, are we sure that he understands the game of football?
That was all in that last 4-play sequence.
Exactly. So Auburn, with a single caught punt, wins this game.
Yep.
They obviously muffed that punt, got the ball at Auburn's 30 with down 4, under 5 minutes left, and
with that, so Auburn had 2 number zeros. The guy that normally goes out there to field punts wasn't there, it was somebody else. I don't, because they had 2 number zeros. So like Hugh Freeze legitimately did not know who was out there to catch that punt. So I mean, if they would have realized that, they
that
might have
guy
been a different
probably
story.
wants to make sure that Hugh Freeze doesn't know that he's the one that was out there to catch that punt.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. I mean, CBS investigated it right away because they were a little bit confused, and then they figured out what it was. But yeah, Freeze had no idea that's the guy that actually went out there to do it. He thought it was the guy that normally does it.
Yeah.
I'm not good at names, but yeah.
So we already talked about the Milrow experience. He had a run on 3rd and 20 and took an absurd hit. The guy that hit him, I'm pretty sure, knocked himself out for a second.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, that's laying it all on the line for your team. Huge props to that guy.
He stopped him a yard short too, like insane.
Yeah, Jalen Milrow with a head of steam is hard to move backwards, and this defensive back did it. So
it was like he hit a wall. I mean, like he just got, running full speed, 20, 25 miles an hour, dead stop.
Boom. Yeah.
Like literally a car accident. We talk about that all the time, and that's always, throw it out there as an analogy, but that was a car accident.
Yeah. Neither of those guys are feeling good today.
No.
Probably not tomorrow either.
No.
But they got the first down on the next play. They had to go for it on 4th. And then goal to go. 1 yard loss. The center did what he's done all season, had a bad snap. Jalen Milrow wasn't even ready for it, and it went wide right. Loss of 18 yards. Jalen Milrow was lucky to get that ball back because there were 2 Auburn defenders within a few feet of him. Yep. 3rd down. Jalen Milrow runs 3 yards past the line of scrimmage, then goes backwards and throws a ball that wasn't close to being completed. Instead of just trying to get more yards on the ground and getting out of bounds.
And so instead, they call the illegal forward pass, and then it's a loss of downs. Now it's 4th and 3rd. Well, 4th and goal, but from a 31-yard line.
And then Auburn says, you know what? We're just going to send 3 guys after Jalen Milrow. Even though he's not very accurate on the move, we're going to give him the cleanest pocket you could imagine.
How long do you think he had in the pocket? Like, I want to say it was like 7 seconds. It felt like it was forever.
It did. And then Isaiah Bond catches it back corner. The pass, even with that much time, still not great, which is just kind of wild to me. But Jalen Milrow had himself a day, 259 yards passing, 107 yards on the ground. And Auburn should have won this game with 93 yards passing.
That's absurd. That can't be real.
Jarquez Hunter, like, I get why he didn't want to be on this Auburn team. Came back anyways because he made a commitment to the team. But between him and the other 2 guys that were running the ball, Bama had no shot.
Yeah.
And then Peyton Thorne actually looked pretty good running the ball. At least he had some accurate passes, but he didn't have to pass the ball very much.
Well, he only completed like 5 balls, right? I didn't have it written.
He was under 50%.
Yeah.
But he didn't attempt that many passes.
Yeah. And they still almost won.
Should have won.
Yeah.
If they catch that punt, they win the game.
Or if they, may have a little bit more of a pass rush than like cover 8.
Yeah, and then so I've seen multiple different scores on the final of that game. Kind of weird how that one ended. because Auburn's last drive after they got the kickoff, they had like 5 seconds. They should have gotten a safety, but the offensive lineman picked it up, got tackled, fumbled the ball, and it still kept going because he never really had possession. And then they recovered it at the 1. Peyton Thorne, as the clock was hitting 0, gets the ball snapped, throws a pick 6.
Yeah.
So
They still said, I think it was like 27-24. They still said it was a 3-point game everywhere that I saw. But
okay, so I'd seen that, and I'd also seen the 33-24. Um,
hmm.
I I don't know if anybody really knows because I think that
Yeah.
ball was actually snapped after the clock hit 0, so it didn't really count.
Oh, okay.
But just a wild turn of events in that game.
hmm I mean, that was the most Iron Bowl since the kick six. That was so much fun.
20 The last game at Auburn was also pretty wild. Double overtime with a very highly ranked Alabama team. Bryce Young ends
hmm
up going down the field to tie the game, take it to overtime. So that, the Iron Bowl rarely disappoints in Auburn.
Yeah. Yeah, Tuscaloosa is usually, well, not usually, but it can be a different story. But yeah, playing in Auburn, can't miss.
All right, so we're going to talk about just a little bit about what's going on this week in the grand scheme of things, talking about college football. So Oregon and Washington are playing Friday night in Vegas. I want to say that's an 8 p.m. kickoff.
Yeah, hell yeah, dude, I'm so excited for it.
That's going to be a great game. I know
Mm.
everyone's looking forward to it. Liberty and New Mexico State, the same New Mexico State that beat Auburn, um,
Yeah.
are playing Friday night as well for the Conference USA title. Liberty is trying to go 13-0 this season with Jamie Chadwell, former Coastal Carolina coach.
hmm
Um, and, knowing the zealousy that comes out of Liberty, it's entirely possible that they claim a national title after going 13-0. Even
hmm
though I think they played 2 Power 5 teams this season.
hmm
Um, Oklahoma State and Texas are playing at noon on Saturday. I was a year early on Oklahoma State. It's my bad, guys. Just
Oh, were
uh,
they your bandwagon team last year?
yes, yes, they were.
I think
Um,
I think I picked Oklahoma State and Texas to play in the Big 12
I
championship in the
think you did.
preseason.
I think you did.
Getting me, I did. I got one Big 12 thing right.
Um, Georgia, Bama, obviously are playing at 4 p.m. And then Michigan and Iowa and Louisville, Florida State are both 8 p.m. on Saturday night. Um, one coach, well, actually two coaching hires that are really interesting. Mike Elko called it a few weeks ago. I said he was my guy that I think they should hire. Not splashy, but he'll get the job done.
Yeah.
Taking the Texas A&M job after Mark Stoops was once again um, the leader in the clubhouse for a Maroon team. Throwing that back to the Florida State comments, and ended up not coming to fruition after it was rumored he was already hired. And then another Maroon team, just because there's so many damn Maroon teams. Mississippi
This
State.
show-
Mississippi State hired Jeff Lebby,
yeah.
Oklahoma
Yeah.
offensive coordinator. Um,
Uh,
he was also the offensive coordinator at Ole Miss the year that they took Bama down to the wire. I want to say 2020, 2021, something like that. Um, I think
is
that was
that
entirely to try to keep Will Rogers on the team.
I was gonna say, like, does Levy, is it kind of like an air raid? Because I honestly, I don't know. I really don't. I
So
mean, Oklahoma scores, but I don't know. I don't
it
know.
it's a lot like the same offense that Ole Miss is still running.
Okay.
Yeah, so big pass plays, but they do run the ball well. And Mississippi State has good running backs, so if they can keep Woody Marks on the roster, I think that's a great scheme for them to run next season.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into bets. I don't even have any idea how I did this week, so that'll be fun.
Oh,
Um,
oh. Let me go first, because I'm very excited about how it ended. Like, not
okay.
necessarily my week, but all right. So my picks, I texted them to you and put them in the doc and all that, so I didn't get a chance to elaborate much, which I'm not really going to here. But I took Michigan to cover the 3 points against Ohio State. They won by 6. Took Georgia to cover by 24.5. Obviously, they did not do that. Only won by 8. I did take Iowa. They were a 2.5 point underdog. They ended up winning by 3. That did you see the end of that game?
I didn't. I have
Um,
avoided Iowa football like the plague this year.
I there were so many interceptions and turnovers the last like minute of that game. There's no reason why Iowa should have won that game, but Nebraska, and Iowa ended up pulling through with the kick because that's all they know how to do as far as scoring points. Um, Again, you guys talked about it. I fell for a Texas Tech one more time. I took them to as an underdog. Took them with a plus 12.5. They decidedly did not come close to that. Texas whooped the shit out of them.
Yeah,
So that
yeah.
wasn't even close. That was
I
bad.
think Texas covered the over under by themselves.
Yeah. It was they won by 50, didn't they? It was like 57
Yes.
57.
Yes.
Good lord. So yeah, Texas Tech, I'm not yeah, never again. Never again. Never again. I took Oregon State. They were a 13.5 point underdog. I thought that the last Civil War game, they hadn't rescheduled anything. I thought they would come through and with the upset ruin Oregon season, and they pulled the Texas Tech and got demolished by Oregon. So that was a bad look. And then finally, I took Maryland. They were a 1 point favorite at Rutgers. I think they won by like 21. So they uh, they came through. Maryland, very average team, beat slightly below average Rutgers. So for the week, I was 3-3, but on the season, greatness. 69 wins, 61 losses, and a push.
That's a very nice record. It's a very
Very
nice
nice.
record.
Yeah.
So apparently I did really well this week. If I'm being honest, I thought I didn't. So it took Oregon to cover that 13.5. They did. Michigan covered the 3. Georgia did not even come close to covering that 24.5. Took the Washington money line just because of the way they've played. I thought it would be a close game, and it was a damn near overtime game. Um,
You were right on
Mizzou,
there.
do what?
So no, you were definitely right on that because they were what, like a 17 point favorite?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, Mizzou minus 7.5. They covered that all day. It's a little tangent here. Um, First off, love the Arkansas coaches after that fight broke out on the field. Arkansas coaches literally ran over there and started horse collar tackling their own players to get them out of the fight.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Mhm.
Um, but Mizzou up quite a bit of points and keeping their starters in the game in the fourth quarter. That's trashy.
Yeah.
That's
That's drink. I mean, like I think I had mentioned him before. It's like once nobody cares when he's losing, but when he's winning, he's a dick. Like I don't know
yeah.
how.
I don't. That's trashy.
Yeah.
Louisville losing to Kentucky was also trashy, especially when they were only 7 point favorites over a team that was lucky to make a bowl game this year. Not a
Yep.
fan of that. Arizona only 10.5 point favorites when they dominated Arizona State. Easy
That
money.
was that was like a 50 point win too, or close to
And
it.
then Bama Auburn. The score was a lot closer to the second option that I threw out there than it was the first, but they hit the over on 49. Um, So this week, 5-2 total record, 68-56, and I had 2 pushes. One win from greatness, but not everybody can be as nice as you.
In in your defense, I picked like 7 more games.
Ah, that's you win some, you lose some.
Yep. Yeah.
Um,
Are we
so
gonna are we gonna count conference championships? Next week in this or no? Are we gonna keep it there?
we can. What we'll do is we'll keep the regular season, but then we'll add on as we pick throughout the bowl season to um, to just have like a regular season and then a combined to uh, to see
Finish
how
it
it
out.
goes. And because we've picked different quantities of games, we might do like a winning percentage kind of situation.
Yeah. Sounds good. Hell yeah.
Um, so nothing finer moment of the week. We're just going all the fights and all the rivalry games. Um, obviously Arkansas, Mizzou. There was some stuff that happened in that Texas game, and then a feel good moment after winning the Egg Bowl in a very close game, closer than a lot of people thought it would be. Lane Kiffin in his post game press conference said he missed Mike Leach being on that other sideline. So even bitter rivals, game respects game, and obviously Mike Leach should be in the College Football Hall of Fame. So that was pretty cool to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
Going through the same stuff we do every week. Follow all of our social media at nothing.finder.pod on Instagram, at finderpod, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Search us there. Check out the merch. For whatever reason, every time Mike tries to show it off, Lou Holt's face pops through the shirt, so we can't really see it. But it is.
I'm gonna send him. I'm gonna send Lou Holtz one of these.
Do it. Let's do it. What's the worst that happens?
Yeah. He'll just drool all over it.
It's what it is.
Yeah.
Rate and review the show 5 stars. We will send us a screenshot and we will send you a sticker. And as always, guys, remember there is nothing finer in the land
Than a drunk obnoxious Georgia fan.